I'm doing well. I see your name in the okay, yeah. Probate claim, yeah. Good, see. Oh, John.
Everybody, just 1 second, please. At 11:30, we're gonna do some talks. So it's almost 11:30, so I'm just gonna let people know if you want to run to the washroom, if you'd like to get a cookie or anything like that, do that, and then we're gonna get ready to do some little talks about Martha. Go back to talking, Sarah. Thank you. Nothing. Yeah. Yeah. Good, how are you? Yeah. Sooner than later. We talked about it a lot today.
Do you think this is a good spot for the Zoom, like to look at the audience, or I can switch?
Marcy always has.
Based on.
It's birthday today. And my old high school boyfriend. We have some.
Got a hammer. Yeah. Yeah, it was trying. Here's. Exactly. Right.
It's fine to sit there. Perfect.
Can people hear? So, thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate that you're all here. It's really nice to be here with Martha's family and friends, and especially here in Springfield where it's kind of started out and now shall end. We put together a couple of presentations. Sarah's gonna speak, Nina, Marcy, Eric, and me. And hopefully we'll just go for about 20 or so minutes, maybe a little longer. And then we can talk again. Okay. Here's the list.
Yes, I see that. Okay. I go to many things where people talk with microphones and they hold them down here. I know how to talk in a microphone, so you can. I know, I'm gonna probably short. I am so tired. Okay, I am, in case you don't know, I'm Martha's little sister. I'm the last one of the family left. And, we were 22 months apart. I think I was an accident. They already had a boy and a girl. And then along came me, so that was probably the worst thing that happened to Martha. So anyway, I have received a few things from other people, so I'm going to read those first. This is from Kathy Kropa. We lost a lot of people in Old Mission, a lot of Old Mission people this winter. And one of them was Nick Kropa. And Kathy says, I'm sorry to hear about Martha. You are both at a loss, so to speak. She was one of the first people I met out there. She was very nice to me, and I know Nick liked her too. I did not realize she was your sister. We lived right next door to each other, but I'm sure Nick knew. He had everyone's story at hand. I'm feeling a bit weak lately, so I'll include her in my thoughts. I'm sure you will miss her. Okay. And then Susan Linden, these are Old Mission people. Dear Sarah, I always liked talking to Martha, especially when she described her museum. They were fascinated that she had a museum in her basement. I forgot about that. You both really appreciated history because you got that from your father. Then my Julie, she's really upset she couldn't be here. She is on her way home from Mexico. She loved Mexico, was thinking about moving there. No. And so she wrote this to put in the Old Mission news letter. Martha loved antiques, often spending hours searching Wilson's antiques, this old barn, and various venues in Michigan. She would work on sanding and painting pieces for hours on the back porch in Michigan. She also loved classical music. I, Miss Julie, remember attending a World Youth Symphony concert at Interlaken and discussing the various pieces and composers we had listened to. She was quite knowledgeable. She had a great laugh that shook her entire body. I remember her picking chicory by the side of the road because she loved its blue color. She enjoyed square dancing, which she learned in Old Mission. We didn't have square dancing as kids. And Julie says she has pictures. I have pictures of it. This love continued into adulthood. I wish I could have seen her in her square dance outfit. And if you know what square dance outfits look like, it was a visual something, I don't know. And that's very funny. We used to tease her about it. Martha and Logan Schliff were great friends and would sit and chat in the evenings and watch TV. I'd like to think they are together now having one of their chats. And by the way, do we have the Zoom set up?
No. It's not gonna go.
Is that gonna work? Okay. All right. Now this last one.
Sorry.
Hi, Dan.
Okay, hi, Dan.
Now I didn't tell anybody that I forgot this one. This one is from her friend Marie. Martha Thomas and I have shared a remarkable friendship that spans over 9 decades. I can't remember why, but we didn't call each other by our given names, Martha and Marie, but called one another Mert. I was Cert. As neighbors in Springfield, our backyards connected. My house on Bates Avenue and hers on Wiggins. Now, they were born one day apart, which is just amazing. And they were friends their whole lives. We managed to put up a pulley system between our houses where we passed notes back and forth. I don't think that's true. I think it was, but that's okay. She's 91, that's okay. We had that, but it wasn't from those 2 houses. It was from our next table. We celebrated our birthdays, which were just one day apart, together every year. We both just turned 91, but Martha never made it. And through the years, we created countless memories, including my 2-week summer trips to their house in Old Mission. Mert's wonderful dad introduced us to baseball, taking us to watch the Springfield Browns. That was the baseball team. Yes. Really low level when they had the different levels. And we were there all the time, teaching us everything we know about the game. Growing up, we also had our brothers and Martha's sister around. Marie told me one of the last times I saw her that when Martha was going to come over to her house, she'd say, "Do you have to bring her?" And Martha'd say, "Yeah." Her brother George often teased us while her sister Sarah was always tagging along, making sure we included her in our adventures. Our dogs, Heine, the dachshund, and my dog Socks. That's kind of not right, but anyway, we're also the best of friends. Together, we organized a high school Christmas party at the country club where we dressed in long gowns and invited boys. Our group of 12 high school girls called ourselves the Jugs, which stood for Just Us Girls. Yeah, and now picture my daughter. My daughter laughs about that name. We could never use it nowadays. Even when Mert moved to California, our bond remained strong. She even lent me, this is amazing, she even lent me her wedding dress for my own special day. So they wore the same wedding dress. Throughout our adult lives, we've cherished our time together, from a Caribbean cruise to visits in St. Louis. Though I will deeply miss her, I take comfort in knowing that our friendship will continue in spirit and we will reunite one day in heaven. That's from Lori. So glad I got that. Martha, like I said, she was probably perfectly happy until I came along 22 months later. and I was extremely bratty. But Martha was the middle child, and she had an eye injury at birth, and so she always had glasses, and this eye was really part of her life. I mean, the doctors didn't know what to do, and they made her make her wear a patch, and it was quite awful. But she always did wear glasses until she had cataract surgery in like her eighties, and then she said, I never wore glasses. Yeah, she did. And we had a wonderful house, wonderful family, and we also had, our grandma and Amy Mae, as we call them, Emma and Mary Kreider, our aunts, who lived in a big house on Chatham Road. And what a wonderful place that was, full of treasures, because they never threw anything away. They had wonderful books and wonderful clothes from way back, and just great, great times. We're so blessed to have them in our lives. But we were extremely different. And my father could not understand how two girls in the same family could be so different. It's not unusual, really, and I think birth order has a lot to do with it. But Martha did everything better than I did. She played the piano better. Of course, she practiced too, and that probably was part of it. She was a good artist, and she liked to write. So people have asked about Jennifer, included in her obituary, that we had a newspaper. We did. It was called the Neighborhood News. And Martha did pictures, and she wrote stories. I was mostly in charge of circulation. And it cost 5 cents. I had to take it around and ask the neighbors for 5 cents per paper. But I was more into sports. So one thing I could do better than Martha was I could climb trees really well, and she couldn't climb trees. But I was a total brat. And it's a wonder she put up with me at all. But she never seemed to get mad, or she never was mean back. She just, tolerated me. And like, she had a new dollhouse, and I was reminded that she had a dollhouse as an adult, remember? But she had a dollhouse, and in those days, we didn't have plastic, plastic wasn't a thing. And it had something for windows that was soft. And I poked all the windows out of her new dollhouse. And I don't remember her getting mad at me, but she must have told my mother, because my mother asked me why I did that, and I said, I couldn't help it. Which is true. But she wasn't mean. She was never mean back. And I was terrible to her. I just tormented her all the time. But as we got older, then I thought, we did share a bedroom, and we talked so much at night that my mother came in one night, picked Martha up, took her to the spare bedroom, put her in there, and we never slept together again. But so we got along in our own way, probably because of her. And then we went to Ferry Hall. She went away to Ferry Hall, and I was still at home. And after half a year, I went back up to Ferry Hall too. I wasn't supposed to go right then. We went to Europe together, had a wonderful time. She was sensible. I did things that probably would have gotten killed, but she was sensible. I mean,
I read the script.
These two boys came along, two Italian boys on motor scooters, and asked us to go for a ride at night. And I said, sure. And this other girl and I went, can you believe that? We probably could have gotten killed. Martha said, absolutely not. Okay, but anyway, she was, wonderful sister and that she tolerated me. I'm not a religious person, but I am gonna read something. I'm reading this for the children, for you, young people. To everything, there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. I'm going to stop right there, but to you young people, this is a sad time. This is life. There are good times and bad times in every single life. And this is a bad time for us. It's not the bad time for your grandmother. She didn't have a nice ending, and we're glad for her that she's at peace now. So it's a sad time for us, and but not necessarily for Nana. Her agony is over.
Nina, my youngest daughter.
Hi, everyone. For me, Nana was special because she was the only grandparent I had a chance to meet. She wasn't the stereotypical grandma, but she had her own ways of showing that she cared. One of them being sent letters to each other. I feel fortunate enough to have memories with her before her dementia set in. And one of my most memorable memories with her was playing Candyland in Old Mission, and where she would always get so into the game that she even accused that I was cheating. At 4 years old. Another favorite memory was playing dress up with her vintage clothes with my mom and Ariana, and I think that's one of the most fun times I've ever had with her. When her dementia progressed, she moved to the Gatesworth, and that's where we started our tradition of sharing a giant royal brownie fudge sundae every time I came, and I would always give her my half of the candied pecans. Whenever we visited, I loved making her lunch, and my mom and I would always play music for her, hoping to spark her own self. I'll never forget the time we played My Way by Frank Sinatra. And then the lyrics, "Your physique isn't so Greek," played, and then she suddenly stopped singing and looked down at her stomach and her eyes about popped out of her sockets. And she said, "Oh my God," and we all had a good laugh. Though I'm very sad that she is no longer with us, I find peace in knowing that she is free from her dementia. Thank you.
Oh, this is yours. Oh, I think you took mine.
Oh, I'm not gonna get it.
Okay, it's Marcy.
I'm Marcy, I'm Tom's wife, Martha's son, so I'm her daughter-in-law. And, I really didn't know what to expect about having a mother-in-law. I come from a small family with no siblings, and I'm the oldest of my few cousins. When Tom and I first got together, he was in grad school at MIT, and I was doing my residency in Vermont. And then we moved to Seattle for a year while I was a fellow. Since we were only there for a year, our apartment was small. We really just brought the basics and not very much. In the spring, Martha came to visit us. I had met her before, but this was really spending the first time with her and getting to know her as my future mother-in-law. And I really wanted her to like me. I wanted her to think that I was going to take good care of her son. I'd be a good wife and a good addition to her family. Tom told me not to worry, we would get along fine and his mom would think I was great. One day when she was visiting, I came home and I noticed that she was drinking juice from an old pickle jar that had been in the recycling. I asked if I could get her something different to drink from, and she very politely said that none of the glasses that were clean were the right size for drinking juice. I thought that was it. I had totally failed. This was going to be bad. But I quickly realized that this was not true. While she was particular, she was not judgmental. And she really knew that me not having the right size juice glass or the right pillow, she would actually mail the pillow that she wanted to sleep on to our house before she would come and visit so that we had the right pillow for her. But this was more about her than about me. And I never felt less than because I didn't have all the particular things that she liked. To me, this was how Martha was. She accepted me as I was into her family. She paid attention to my style and gave me thoughtful presents. She gave me a funky purse that I carried for years, pretty earrings that I still wear. She gave me a book about snakes because she knew that I was terrified of them and thought that I might like them more if I knew a little bit more about them. She easily could have resented me for derailing her son's career and dragging him all over the US while pursuing mine, or for him choosing to live close to my family instead of close to her, or for raising his kids Jewish. But she didn't. If she wished for something different, she never said it and was always proud and happy to visit, as long as I had juice glasses and the correct pillow. And to me, her memory will always be a blessing.
I'm Martha's youngest son, so of course I'm the favorite. So what I think I remember most and what made my mother unique to other mothers was how chill she was. She rarely got too excited or too stressed about anything, unless it was stressing out over what to make for dinner. Always trying a new recipe, usually a casserole or some other experiment for dinner. She had an interesting taste in books. Her Swedish friend Ulla Nolan gave her a surprise Christmas gift once while I was in high school. The book was titled something like Why Cucumbers Are Better Than Men. My dad had another name for that book. I won't repeat it. Several years later, I recall my sister Jennifer was spending Christmas at her in-laws' house in Ohio. My mom sent Jennifer a book to open while Jennifer was there with Jennifer's in-laws. Jennifer called my mom to complain about my mother giving Jennifer a book titled something like Games You Can Play With Your Pussy and lots of other stuff cat owners should know. It said she was so embarrassed she hid the book before anyone there could see it. I don't know why that embarrassed Jennifer since she had 3 cats at home. Then there was the book she gave me as soon as I graduated from college, titled something like Nice Guys Don't Get Laid. I don't know why my mother gave me that book since I already knew that. From books and talking about my cars. As a young child, when I was about 6, 7 years old, I remember how anytime she had to hit the brakes, her right arm would fly out in front of me, try to stop me from flying through the air. Sometimes she would hit me in the nose or mouth with her arm. I guess she didn't trust my seatbelt. Maybe I wasn't even wearing a seatbelt. It was the 70s. Then there was the constant jiggling of the steering wheel to try to stay perfectly centered in the lane. And if the stoplight turned yellow, she would slowly brake, then hit the gas as if thinking to go through the yellow light before quickly hitting the brakes again and hitting me with the right arm and stopping me from flying. When Jennifer started dating Chris, she told my mom how she rode on the back of Chris's motorcycle. This made my mom concerned for Jennifer's safety. So she asked Jennifer, while you're riding on the motorcycle, do you and Chris wear your seatbelts? Later on, when my son Carl was little, Carl would love to sit in the driver's seat of the parked car in the driveway and pretend like he was driving. We didn't want him to do that. So we told my mom, while Kathy and I were out, don't let Carl sit in the driver's seat of the car. She promised us she wouldn't do it. So we left. we forgot something. I had to go back to the house a few minutes later. That was enough time for my mom to let Carl into the parked car in the driveway. Carl was in the driver's seat honking the horn, and my mom was sitting in the passenger seat just laughing hysterically. Letting him do it. One time we were driving back from Old Mission, and Kathy was driving our car and I was driving my mom's car. And we stopped in Joliet, Illinois, and it was just a few hours left. My mom said that she could drive the rest of the way herself, which probably wasn't a good idea at the time because we had dementia already. Anyway, we're driving back. By this time in the dark, my mom was driving so close behind us, I could not see her headlights behind us. She was driving herself just a few feet behind her car on the interstate highway. While this was going on, another car pulled up beside me. A woman was on the passenger side of the car in the next lane and her window down, signaling for me to roll down my window. So I rolled it down. This woman said to me something like, "There's somebody following you really close, too close." I said back to her, "Yes, I know, that's my mother." And then the woman says to me, "She must really be mad at you." The last little memory I have with her as a little kid, and I think Tom remembers this, if we had a runny nose or something and we needed to be wiped, she'd pull a tissue out of her purse that she had already used, and she would go through the Kleenex and try to find a dry spot on the Kleenex to wipe our noses.
So this morning, I said to Chris, how should we plan who goes in what order? And I think I made a mistake. Should have you last. But anyway, my friend Joellen, I'm Jennifer, oldest daughter. My friend Joellen, who I texted a little while ago about my mom passing away, said, "I always remember your mother chasing you around the house in the morning with a stinky dish rag to wipe your mouth before you left for school." So I guess you got the Kleenex, I got the dish rag. Okay. So I put together some thoughts about my mom. I've spent a lot of time thinking about my mom's funeral or visitation, not just over the last few weeks, but probably for many, many years. I always wondered what her death would be like, where I would be, how it would happen, how I'd respond. My mother and I did not have the most idyllic relationship all the time. We were often at odds with each other. We had the mother-daughter kind of situations that some people don't always know about or acknowledge, but we always seemed to, in the end, work it out. But this is something I thought about for many years. Today, I'm going to give perspective on my mom, who I always refer to as Mom. I know that my perspective may not be the same as my siblings. We all grew up in different times, under different circumstances, with different perspectives. A friend of mine who has 8 brothers and sisters told me that whenever she and her brothers and sisters get together and tell family stories, no one tells them in the same way. And they all have very different memories of the same situation. So if my recollections don't match up with others, that I understand, but these are my thoughts. Some of my first memories of hanging out in my mom's bedroom on Arundel Street, we were messing around with her in her big dresser drawer and trying on her cat eyeglasses, her funny tiara, her costume jewelry, and looking at her little brown diary. She was maybe folding clothes, doing her hair, sitting under her big puffy hairdryer. We'd play with her things, talk about her childhood memories with Sarah and George and her friends, Marie, Kitsy, her boyfriends, dances, her dog, it was Heine? Yeah. And kittens that her dad would bring home from the farm, and her life in California before she met my dad. In the mornings, she would tell me not to talk to her before she put her glasses on. Don't ask me questions, I don't have my glasses on yet. She invented the shoe fairy. The shoe fairy brought our patent leather shoes out on Sundays and for parties, and then mysteriously took them away to keep them safe and protected from overuse. I found them in my father's closet one day. Ha ha, it was a shoe fairy, but we believed in it for years. One of my funniest memories is that she used to buy this face cream. She got it at a place called Merle Norman. You would paint it onto your face 3 times a week, and then your face would tighten up. It would become extremely tight, and it would look like it was lacquered. And she would walk around getting breakfast, doing lunches and things like that with her face all pink and shiny. And I was told, do not make me laugh or have to yell at you. And of course, I took it as a daily challenge. Later, and this kind of goes along with some jug story you were telling earlier, Sarah. My mother purchased a Mark Eden bus developer. We had a lot of fun with that, working on our bosom to no effect. But we spent a lot of time messing around with that. She was an excellent seamstress. She made us clothes and coats. She made Halloween costumes. She made Little Red Riding outfits, a pioneer outfit, a cool hippie dress with fringe. One year, she made herself the most beautiful satin cocktail dress. She wore it to a party at the Lanes up the street. She wore it with a beautiful gold brooch and fancy gold shoes, and all the girls in the neighborhood were abuzz the next day about that dress, and I was very proud. Later, she got into making pillows and into needlepointing decorative rugs for her spectacular dollhouse. We always had traditional dinners at home, something I don't think my girls really experienced. But she would head to the kitchen around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. While sipping on one carefully measured Manhattan, she never overindulged. We had roast beef, mashed potatoes and peas, Swiss steak, chicken that she shook up with spices in a bag, never fish or lima beans. Oftentimes, just when we were finishing, she'd come running in with something she'd forgotten in the oven. Here's the peas, here's the potatoes, here's the rolls. As if we were all going to start eating them as we were done. On nights when my dad wasn't home, we got to have Spam, ham, and macaroni and cheese, or Kraft macaroni and cheese with hot dogs. That was a favorite at our house. Desserts weren't big, but at 10:30 at night, she'd often have a small piece of chocolate dessert while watching Johnny Carson's monologue before going to bed. She had rules. You had to make your bed, set the table, do the dishes. Soda was only allowed on a Saturday night if she was going out, 1 bottle each, and they'd be sitting on the kitchen floor waiting for the babysitter to open them up later. No rewards for good grades. You got good grades because you wanted them, not because someone was offering a quarter or a dime or something of that nature back then in the 60s. But good grades were something you earned because you wanted them, not because there was going to be a reward. I could come home and tell goofy jokes I heard at school, even if they might have been a little off color or inappropriate, and she'd always giggle. I think it might have been the delivery that got her more than the joke a lot of the times. But she would laugh often, distinctly, and like someone said earlier, shake with laughter.
She liked off-color jokes.
Yeah, she did love off-color jokes,
Yeah,
and I could tell them at home. Hear any good jokes today, Jennifer? She had rules about being fair, treating people equally. Can't single someone out and not invite them to your birthday party. That wouldn't be nice. Birthday parties were simple, with games in the backyard, dropping clothespins from our nose into milk bottles, or going to the pool and having hot dogs at the park. Could you even imagine a birthday party now? Friends come over, clothespin. I have pictures. She never seemed overly impressed with anything. She didn't fall for any of my requests for things like go-go boots. When Mr. Stemler across the street offered all the neighborhood kids free tickets to the Bee Gees concert in the late 60s, she said no. She said, you'll be out too late, and you don't need to stay out late for something like that. She even passed up martinis with Ethel Merman the night Mr. Stemler brought her home from the Muni Opera. He must have been in the advertising business or something, I don't know. But she said, it's too late, I've got to get to bed. Mom went to the beat of her own drum. She didn't always take things seriously. She did things her own way. She didn't always seem to care what others thought. In the late 1960s, the Black Panthers came to the church we attended and they asked to speak. The minister asked them to return on a different Sunday. She heard that some of the ladies at the church said that they were going to bring knives under their mink coats if they showed up. She told my father she didn't think that was Christian, and we never went back to that church. She was not receptive to technology. I think we all know that. She did not want anything to do with computers or email or anything like that. I always tried to encourage it just as a way for her to keep in contact with people. And, grandchildren could send pictures and all of that, but she said, no, if people want, they can write a letter. She had a couple of business adventures, kind of related to a lot of her hobbies. She liked to bake quiches and she would serve them at church events and things like that. When my great aunts Emma and Mary moved out of their house on Chatham Road, my grandmother and mom and Sarah and all of us cousins got to go spend time going through all the different treasures. You mentioned those earlier. Antiques, clothes, jewelry, purses, books, things that had been sent back from Europe. That's where I found these earrings. She hadn't really ever been into antiques before that. That was kind of Sarah's thing. You did the trunks and decorated with antiques and stuff, but going through their house really sparked an interest. My mom got more and more interested in antiques, and eventually she opened the Gilded Cage antique store on DeMont Avenue. She and my dad were really into it. It's probably one of the things they really enjoyed together. She loved shopping and setting up the store, and she met a lot of interesting people who became friends. Doc, Wacky Jackie, that we call him. Tom, I forget who the others were. I forgot to write down the email you sent me, Tom. Yes. And I remember her telling me that the business wasn't terribly successful. In fact, her accountant told her she spent more money than she earned, but she really enjoyed it. After she and my dad split up, I think the antique business had to go. And she brought the inventory, complete with price tags, all to our house, and then continued to collect things through the rest of her life. After she and my dad split up and Eric went to college, she had less home duties and she was able to delve more into her antiquing, lectures, movies, plays, books, volunteering, and travel. I talked to her friend Norma this week, who couldn't be here today, but she said that's how she met my mom at a house show or something. A
House tour in St. Louis.
In St. Louis. And she said to mention that my mom was always hospitable and a gracious hostess. In my mom's desire to meet a companion after she got divorced, she got involved in square dancing. As was earlier mentioned, she told me she'd always enjoyed it as a young girl. She was a good dancer. I asked her about her good dancing skills after Sullivan's bar mitzvah. And she said, there's nothing to it. You just let yourself loose and let your partner shove you around. I said, it's never worked for me. But she would don her full square dancing outfits when she square danced at this time. She had skirts with that foo-foo stuff that went under them and everything. And she had her Martha, I'm a swinging single dance pin. And she head off to square dancing on a regular basis. Eventually, she met her longtime boyfriend, Harold Tessero. They continued to participate in dancing. Harold preferred ballroom and she liked the square dancing until they couldn't do it anymore. As Nina mentioned, my mom she loved her grandchildren, but she wasn't a doting kind of grandmother. She was always interested in their activities and tried to support them in her own way. Ariana said she always remembers Nana asking about her dance lessons. Old Mission. I know Sarah talked about it already, but I think my mom only missed a couple of summers in her whole life up until she got dementia. I think some were during the war and probably the summer I was born, because I was born in July of 1958 and they lived in California. So
And I think the summer we went to Europe because
and there's
we
some
went to Europe for like 3 months.
Oh, okay. So very few. But she loved it up there. I'm not sure she loved it for all the same reasons that many associate it with. When I would ask her what she loved most, she said she loved the smell of the pine trees. She loved fussing around the cottage, washing windows, taking care of little things, finding antique treasures to decorate with, and her little flower garden that had good and bad years. She also loved feeding chipmunks the raisins from her cereal and then fussing that they were invading the kitchen. Even as her dementia progressed, on some of her most disoriented days, she could always identify Old Mission in the photos we would look at, connecting to her multi-generational home. The dementia started slowly. We started noticing her repeating questions, not remembering what we were talking about. She got lost on the way to Old Mission one summer, must have been after your trip home. She got lost that summer. She showed up really late. We didn't know what happened, and I asked her, like, why was she so late? And she said, well, she said, I got lost in Gary, Indiana, and this man gave me these gold coins and showed me the way to go. We couldn't figure out what these gold coins were, or where she got them. They were not tollway tokens, not at all. It was like Jack and the Beanstalk or something. I don't know. I kept saying to her, what are these? We made the decision that year that she would not drive to Old Mission ever again by herself. Maybe she drove home that summer following you, maybe that was it. Anyway, the driving became more of a problem just at home as well. And then Harold moved to Gatesworth, that was her square dancing boyfriend. And we had her move to Gatesworth as well. She could be with Harold, they could spend time together. There could be lectures and movies, they could watch baseball games and enjoy lean cuisines in each other's apartments. And I think we would all agree that Gatesworth was really kind of fun, very fancy, kind of like a castle or royalty or something with doormen. And we had some lovely Thanksgivings there over the years. Her memory continued to decline. Sometimes she couldn't remember who we were or where, how she knew us. Eventually it was time to move again, and Eric chose Dolan House for her, a place where she could receive a higher level of care. And lots of the pictures we showed today are from Dolan House. Some days were easier than others. The photos we showed today focus on the better days, but there were bad days and uncomfortable days. Living with dementia and Alzheimer's is not easy, and the days often seem long, confusing, and sometimes sad and difficult. I'd always hoped that she would pass easily, painlessly, maybe in her sleep. On January 2nd, Eric called in the early evening. That is just how it happened. A very short, barely 2-day illness, and she just slipped away. My hope is that she was greeted in heaven by her daddy, her mother, her brother George, Heine, and Oliver, because I think all dogs should get reunited with their families, and her Harold, and that she's laughing and dancing while doing an almond left. Almond left. You can tell I didn't square dance.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
so. I think we're going to the burial now at the cemetery. Yeah, if anyone wants to grab a cookie or anything for the road, please do. Well,
Sarah and I will exhibits. Very nice.
Well, before we go to the cemetery out in the Oak Ridge, for those of you that are giving pallbearers, I do ask, when you guys leave the funeral home that will meet behind the coach so that we can get the casket into the coach. Also, if you are going out to the cemetery, it's come to my understanding that we are on a steep hill, the grave is, so if you are going out to the cemetery, please use caution when we get out to the grave. At this time, if you guys want to pass the casket one final time before we go out to your cars, you're more than welcome to. And we do ask that you turn your headlights and flashers on at this time before we go in procession out to the cemetery.
Kevin would get in, he should, yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm going to end the Zoom now. Thank you. Of course. Thank you for joining.